Marcus sat alone at the marble bar, watching the amber liquid swirl in his glass. 3 years of marriage felt like a lifetime sentence. He had left behind everything: his marriage to Catherine, the comfortable life they'd built together, the promises they'd whispered on their wedding day. Everything crumbled when he met Vivian at that gallery opening in Prague. She was magnetic, dangerous, everything Catherine wasn't. Vivian had awakened something primal in him, a hunger he never knew existed. But tonight, as he sat in this dimly lit tavern in coastal Portugal, Vivian was nowhere to be found. She'd abandoned him 2 weeks ago with a note that simply read, "You were never enough, darling." The irony struck him hard. He'd sacrificed his integrity for someone who valued him less than a seasonal lover. The tavern door burst open, bringing with it the salt-laden wind. A small girl, no more than 7 years old, stumbled inside. Drenched and shivering. She wore a threadbare coat and clutched a leather journal to her chest. The bartender shot her a dismissive look, but Marcus found himself moving before he could think. Pause. He wrapped his jacket around her small frame. "Where are your parents, little one?" The girl's enormous gray eyes studied him with unsettling maturity. "They're dead," she said matter-of-factly. "My name is Sophie. I was in an orphanage, but I left because they told me lies about who I was." Something about her honesty pierced through the protective walls he'd constructed. Marcus found himself buying her hot chocolate and a meal. As she ate, she spoke about searching for her real family, about a lighthouse and hidden letters, about a woman named Elena, who had apparently known her before the orphanage. Why are you telling me this?" Marcus asked. Sophie met his gaze steadily. "Because you're running from something, and I think we both need to stop running." She opened her journal and showed him a faded photograph of a woman with kind eyes and auburn hair standing before a white lighthouse. Something awakened in Marcus's chest, not the dangerous hunger Vivian inspired, but something deeper, something that whispered of redemption, of purpose beyond his own selfish desires. This child, this lost little girl, with her mysterious journal, had somehow stumbled into his life at precisely the moment he needed saving. "What if," Marcus heard himself say, "we found this Elena together?" Sophie's face transformed with a smile so bright it could rival the sun. "Really?" Marcus nodded, knowing somehow that this moment would change everything. Elena stood on the cliff overlooking the restless Atlantic, her flowing green dress dancing in the wind like it had a life of its own. As an architect, she designed 7 lighthouses, but this one remained her greatest failure. Commissioned 15 years ago, it had never been built. The developer, Thomas Hartwell, had backed out suddenly, leaving her heart shattered along with her professional reputation. Thomas had been more than a client. He'd been her first love, her inspiration for every romantic building she'd ever dreamed up. When he'd disappeared without explanation, she'd thrown herself into her work, creating cold, austere designs that bore no trace of the passion that once fueled her imagination. Now, standing before the actual lighthouse, built by someone else, standing proud against the sky, she felt the old wounds reopening. "Excuse me, are you Elena Fontaine?" A deep voice pulled her from her reverie. A man approached, weather-worn and weary, with haunted eyes that suggested he carried secrets of his own. Beside him held a small girl's hand, and the moment Elena saw the child's face, her breath caught in her throat. "Sophie?" the name escaped as a whisper. The girl released Marcus's hand and ran toward Elena, who dropped to her knees. "I looked everywhere," Sophie cried. "They told me you weren't real, that I had imagined you, but I found your letters in that chest. And I knew I had to find you." Marcus watched the reunion with unexpected tenderness. Elena was beautiful in a way that wasn't immediately obvious. Her beauty came from her authenticity, the way her hands trembled as they held Sophie, the way genuine tears streamed down her face. Nothing like Vivian's calculated perfection. "How did you find me?" Elena asked Sophie, her voice thick with emotion. Sophie turned to Marcus. "He helped me. His name is Marcus, and he was lost too." Elena looked up at him then, really looked at him. Something passed between them in that moment, an invisible thread of recognition, as though their souls had been waiting to meet all along. Marcus stepped forward, helping Elena to her feet. His hand remained on her arm, sending unexpected warmth through her body. "Sophie came into my life when I needed reminding that there's still goodness in this world," he said quietly. Thomas emerged from the lighthouse then, now silver-haired, but unmistakably the man Elena had loved all those years ago. "Elena, my God, after all this time." But Elena's hand was still in Marcus's. She turned back to Sophie. "Tell me everything, sweetheart. Tell me how you ended up in an orphanage." Sophie took both their hands. "I can explain everything, but not here. Thomas said there's someone in Paris who needs to meet us all. Someone who has answers about my past." Marcus and Elena exchanged glances, their fingers intertwining almost unconsciously. What had begun as a search for a lost child had become something neither of them expected. The beginning of a journey that would heal their wounded hearts and rewrite their fates. The ship cut through sapphire waters as Captain James steered them toward the coordinates Sophie had found in her letters. The journey from the coast took 3 days, and Marcus found himself unable to look away from Elena as she stood at the bow, her hair whipping in the wind, her eyes bright with the possibility of answers. One night, beneath a canopy of stars that seemed endless, Marcus found her alone on the deck. "You're thinking too loudly," Elena said, without turning. "I can hear your mind racing from here." Marcus moved beside her, their shoulders nearly touching. "I was thinking about how quickly life changes. How one person can enter your existence and reorganize everything you thought you understood about yourself." Elena turned to face him, and in the moonlight, she looked ethereal. "I've spent 15 years designing buildings that would impress people," she confessed. "Creating monuments to dreams I no longer believed in." Then Sophie appeared, and suddenly I remembered why I loved creating things in the first place. Not for accolades, but because it connects us to something infinite. "And now?" Marcus asked softly. "Now I'm wondering if the most beautiful structures are the ones we build with other people." Her voice was barely audible. Marcus reached for her hand. The moment their skin touched, electricity sparked between them. He pulled her close, his other hand coming up to cradle her face. Their kiss was tender yet desperate, filled with all the longing of two people who'd forgotten what it meant to truly connect with another soul. When they finally pulled apart, Elena rested her forehead against his. "I'm terrified," she whispered, "of hoping, of believing this is real." "So am I," Marcus admitted, "but I think that's exactly when we should be brave." The next morning, they reached the island, a place so untouched, It seemed frozen in time. Ancient stone structures dotted the landscape, and Sophie led them toward a hidden cave system. Inside, they discovered a sanctuary of photographs and documents. It became clear that Sophie's parents had been archaeologists who discovered something extraordinary before they died, and they'd hidden their daughter to protect her. Thomas appeared in one of the photographs, younger, different. He was here too, part of the mystery. He approached them with tears in his eyes. "I've been guarding these secrets for so long, waiting for Sophie to be old enough to understand." As they pieced together the truth, Marcus and Elena stood together, their hands clasped, their hearts beating as one. Whatever revelation awaited them on this forgotten island, they would face it together. The storm hit with ferocious intensity, forcing them to take shelter within the stone structures. What they discovered inside changed everything. The walls held maps and journals describing an ancient civilization. But more importantly, they revealed Sophie's true heritage. She was the descendant of protectors, guardians of these sacred archives. But there was another revelation waiting. As the lightning illuminated the cave walls, a woman emerged from the shadows. It was Isabella, Thomas's daughter from a relationship long before Elena, before any of them. She had been searching for Sophie as well, though for different reasons. Isabella's eyes were cold as winter. "She's mine," she announced. "Sophie belongs with our family, not with strangers." Marcus stepped protectively forward, his arm around Elena. "Sophie belongs with people who love her and want to protect her," he said firmly. The tension was suffocating. As the storm raged outside, they were trapped together, forced to confront the complexity of family, heritage, and love. Sophie, with surprising maturity for her years, spoke up. "I need to know who I really am," she said. "But I also need to choose my own family. That's what my parents would have wanted." End parentheses. Isabella, touched by Sophie's words, began to share her own painful story of abandonment, of searching for belonging. Elena listened with her architect's heart, understanding how pain builds walls around souls. She approached Isabella carefully, offering her water, a blanket, and most importantly, a listening ear. As the night deepened, Elena and Isabella talked while Marcus sat with Sophie, telling her stories of his own journey from darkness. He found himself speaking honestly about his failed marriage, about his attraction to Vivian, about how he'd confused passion with love. "Did Vivian make you happy?" Sophie asked, with unsettling wisdom. "No," Marcus answered truthfully. "She made me feel something, but it wasn't happiness. It was like chasing a drug, always needing more, never satisfied." "What about Elena?" Marcus looked toward the woman arguing passionately with Isabella about protecting archaeological sites. Elena's face was animated, intelligent, real. "Elena makes me want to be better," he said softly. "Not for her, but for myself. That's the difference." By dawn, Isabella had agreed to help them protect Sophie's heritage rather than claim ownership of it. The storm passed, leaving behind a cleansed landscape and cleansed hearts. That night, in the safety of the stone chamber, Marcus pulled Elena close as they watched over sleeping Sophie. Their kiss was deeper than before, infused with the understanding that love meant fighting for each other, not running away. "I love you," Elena whispered against his chest. "And I know it's fast, and I know we barely know each other, but—" Marcus tilted her chin up, meeting her eyes. "I love you too. And you're right. We barely know each other. But I know this. You make me believe in redemption. You make me believe I'm capable of being the man I want to be." 6 months later, the lighthouse where Thomas worked hosted a celebration unlike any other. Elena had finally completed her design for the expanded archaeological museum that would preserve Sophie's heritage while honoring her parents' legacy. Marcus had quit his aimless wandering and become the museum's director, channeling his newfound purpose into preservation and education. Sophie, now more settled, but still carrying her mysterious wisdom, cut the ceremonial ribbon as cameras flashed. But the real celebration happened in the small cottage overlooking the sea, where close friends gathered. Vivian appeared unexpectedly, having seen news of the museum opening. She looked diminished somehow, and when Marcus saw her, he felt nothing. No anger, no longing, not even curiosity. She was a chapter that had closed, a lesson learned. Elena noticed his expression as Vivian approached. Rather than showing jealousy, Elena slipped her hand into his, a gesture that felt like coming home. "I heard you found your happiness," Vivian said to Marcus, her voice carrying a note of genuine sadness. "I wanted to tell you I'm sorry. Sorry for how I treated you, and sorry for being so broken that I couldn't recognize what I had." Marcus nodded with compassion. "I hope you find peace, Vivian. I truly do." After Vivian left, Elena led Marcus to the cliff, where they'd first glimpsed each other months ago. The extended lighthouse stood proud against the twilight sky, and beneath them, the Atlantic crashed in eternal rhythm. "I want to design our home," Elena said, pulling out sketches she'd been secretly working on. "Something that combines my architecture with your vision. Something with gardens where Sophie can play, rooms where we can create art and discovery, and a tower where we can watch the stars." Marcus studied the beautiful designs, seeing not just buildings, but a life, a real, solid, beautiful life built on genuine connection. "Marry me," he said suddenly, then laughed at his own impulsiveness. "I know we haven't known each other long, but I've spent enough time with the wrong person. I know what wrong feels like. This, you, Sophie, Thomas, Isabella, this community we've built, this feels right." Elena's answer was a kiss that tasted of salt water and new beginnings. The wedding happened 3 months later on the beach, with Sophie as flower girl, Thomas as Marcus's best man, and Isabella serving as Elena's bridesmaid. Even Captain James attended, his weathered face creasing with smiles. They exchanged vows that spoke not of perfect love, but of chosen love, of two broken people who'd learned that the best adventures weren't found on maps, but in each other's hearts. As they walked together into their new life, Sophie ran ahead of them along the beach, collecting shells and laughing with the unself-conscious joy of a child finally secure. Marcus pulled Elena close, and she rested her head on his shoulder. "Thank you," Marcus whispered into her hair. "For what?" "For being patient with me while I remembered how to love. For showing me that redemption exists. For choosing me when you could have chosen anyone." Elena looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the golden light of the setting sun. "You've shown me something too," she said, "that sometimes the most important structures we build aren't made of steel and glass. They're made of trust, vulnerability, and the courage to believe in second chances." They stood together on that beach, watching Sophie play in the surf, feeling the weight of their shared history and the lightness of their hoped-for future. The lighthouse beams swept across them as evening turned to night, a steady, constant presence, much like the love they'd found in each other. Their story wasn't one of perfect romance or easy answers. It was the story of two people who'd lost their way and found it again through each other, through a lost child's wisdom, and through the grace of unexpected moments that change everything. As the stars emerged one by one, Marcus and Elena stood under the infinite sky, no longer running from anything. Finally, home.